Hello everyone, today I'll be reviewing The Public Enemy. So The Public Enemy is a gangster film. It came out in 1931 and was directed by William A. Wellman. So this film starts off in Chicago in the year 1909, where these two boys named Tom and Matt, they spend their time committing petty theft and shoplifting, and they then sell these items onto this other guy known as Putty Nose. So they start off being criminals when they're younger, and then what happens is that the film progresses through the 1910s and into the early 1920s when Prohibition starts. And then Tom Powers, as he is known, this character is then played by James Cagney, and Matt is played by Edward Woods. And these two characters, they make their way through Chicago trying to make money. Eventually they get involved in bootlegging as well in order to earn some extra cash. This was one of the first proper gangster films in Hollywood. As I said, it came out in 1931, which was around the same time as a few other gangster films like Little Caesar and Scarface, The Shame of a Nation. So gangster films were really big around this time, and this was also only a few years into the sound era. Remember, the first sound film was The Jazz Singer in 1927, so this was only a few years after that. And this was James Cagney's first big role, and it really made him become a proper star, and he went on to star in lots of other big films after this. Interestingly enough, Edward Woods, who plays Matt, he was originally meant to be the lead role, and James Cagney was meant to play Matt, but eventually the two actors got switched round with their characters and James Cagney became the big star. And he certainly suits this kind of gangster character very well. He went on to being quite a few other films like The Roaring Twenties and White Heat, and this character he plays, Tom Powers, he is excellent in this role, just in terms of his body language, his mannerisms, his bravado, his facial expressions, everything. You can really tell he enjoys playing this sort of character and that he likes being this badass guy who really doesn't take any rubbish from anyone. We also have Jean Harlow in this film. She plays a character called Gwen, who becomes Tom's love interest later on. And if I'm honest, her role in the film is actually fairly small. Once she's introduced, she does hang around for a bit, and she has a few key scenes, but eventually she just seems to disappear from the film, which I thought was a bit of a shame. Now, even though this is a gangster film, there actually aren't that many violent scenes in it. And when I say there's not many violent scenes, I mean there's not many scenes of shootouts and punch-ups, although there are a few scuffles here and there, which is to be expected. And in fact, there are quite a few characters that do die in this film, but quite a lot of the time the deaths are actually seen off screen. And if I'm honest, I think it is very effective. It's very well done. It's quite clever the way the film leaves it up to the audience to imagine what happens and to just, see the image of these characters dying, which actually works very well. And interesting enough, as I said before, this was the early 1930s, so this was the pre-code era, so it was before the Hays Code came in, and the Hays Code meant that certain things weren't able to be shown in films. So this film does actually include a few scenes which actually had to be removed later on when it was given a re-release. So there's a scene, for example, when Matt is being served breakfast in bed, and that scene, that didn't go with the Hays Code, so they had to remove it when it was shown later, but it's later obviously been restored since. I also really like the score in this film, the music that's at the beginning of it, and we hear the song I'm Forever Blowing Bubbles quite a lot, although I don't actually hear the song, but we hear the instrumental of it. I'm Forever Blowing Bubbles it was an American song which was released around 1918 and later became quite popular. And obviously, if you're a West Ham fan, then you'll obviously know the song. It became a song for West Ham later on. But anyway, back to the film. So the acting in this film, I think is pretty good. I think it's a shame that we don't get to see more of the characters more often, because this is quite a short film. It's quite a brisk film. It's only 84 minutes long. So if I was to say anything particularly bad at this film, it might be that the plot is fairly straightforward. There's nothing, there's not really many twists and turns there, except when it gets to the end. And actually, I'm not going to spoil the ending for you, but the ending is quite shocking and quite disturbing. And I think after I watched this, I was slightly disappointed in the ending, because I thought there was going to be an extra scene afterwards of something that was going to happen, but it just sort of ends and just leaves it there. Now that I've had time to take the film in, I think actually the ending is actually very effective, and it does actually work very well. Also, one of the things I wasn't really too keen on was the fact that we get lots of messages come up before the film and at the end of the film, just explaining basically that that these characters are bad and that we shouldn't act like these characters do, which obviously makes sense, but it just seems a bit of a strange thing to put on there. I don't know, it's a gangster film, so I'm sure most of us already know this, but it's just presenting the film as, obviously with the title, The Public Enemy, and just showing that James Cagney's character, he is a public enemy and he's not a good person, which is fair enough. But I just suppose nowadays I don't like that kind of thing when they put these disclaimers on films and as if to say we don't condone the actions of the characters. You know, I'm just watching this as a film. I'm not going to be inspired by any of the characters in this film, but I suppose everyone's different. So overall, I think The Public Enemy is an excellent gangster film. Definitely probably one of the best classic gangster films of all time. I still haven't seen that many gangster films from this era. I have seen Scarface in 1932, which was actually very violent for its time, and also White Heat, which came quite a few years later, which is a fantastic film. This one sits comfortably as being a very good gangster film. James Cagney is brilliant, so if you like your old school gangster movies, this is definitely one that needs to be seen. So for that reason, I'm going to give The Public Enemy a rating of 9 out of 10. So definitely check this one out if it sounds like your kind of thing. So there we go. So that is my review of The Public Enemy. So what do you guys think? Have you seen The Public Enemy? Do you like it? Do you dislike it? Please let me know what your thoughts are down in the comment section below. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. See you all in the next video. Take care.